what makes a man.
Next poet is Philip Daughtry. Philip actually studied with Galloway Cannell and Robert Bly before moving to the San Francisco Bay Area. He had many mentors who were influential. A very literary, intelligent person, he soaked up everything he could get his hands on. He lived in Berkeley during the 1970s, but often came to San Francisco. He was more interested in the baby beat scene in San Francisco than he was what was going on in Berkeley, so he joined forces with us in North Beach and became one of the rotating editors of Beatitude magazine for Beatitude number 26, which he co-edited with Ken Wainio. Eventually we became best friends, and he was one of the one who introduced me to Gary Snyder and the Kuksu community up on the Ridge, which is where I ended up after leaving San Francisco. We have remained close friends ever since, and I published his collection of poems, Celtic Blood, Selected Poems 1968 to 1994. He was a major player in the Beatitude cadre and acted as MC for the first annual San Francisco Poetry Festival. He has a poetic voice like no one else I know. Philip Daughtry, Santry.
I just finished working on a book that's titled Runaway Angels, and I thought I'd bring one of the poems that's from that book. It's a love poem I wrote called Heights That Feathers Fall From. Can you hear me all right back there? Yeah, okay. Rumpled as a cloud stirs my valentine, fingertips that brush our lips, each kiss insisting time does not exist. Along her waking my tongue defines its feline stretch, where she guides my arrow to the spring of every human cry, and falls full spent within its dream to fly before and after lovers die. I wrote this for my son. Originally, when I come from I got my Jody, so sometimes I miss the voice of me Jody voice a bit, so once in a while I get into it here and there. And I thought this was a way for a double kill, because when I was living on the ridge I was studying sitting Zazen, I did Zazen, and so and my grandfather was a regimental sergeant major, and I don't know if you remember the story, the Gunga Din, Rudyard Kipling, it was Din. Well, my grandfather's regimental Bisti was Gunga Din. He knew Gunga Din, honest to God. Because I've got pictures of him, but he was an old stalwart cavalryman, and when I got sent out of England in 1954, and I never saw him again, which was a heartbreak. And so I pretended he was a Zen teacher. And this is called Alf's Lecture to his Zen students. All right, lambs, settle yourselves. Get off the tit. Hark, this here's a snapshot of the dragon. Notice, he's wearing a sign. It says, reality. Keep your hands off it. It belongs to him. That's why we're here, practicing attention. First thing, stay awake. Lay claim to nothingness. Breathe in, breathe out. Grow flowers. Right. Next thing, die. Hey, come back. Come back, we haven't had tea yet. There's a Zen magazine called Blind Donkey that I love to be in. It was in San Francisco, and they took that. Okay. Now this is for my son and daughter because it's called Spider Engineers. I'm a country lad. I've always lived in the country. I still do to a large extent. And I wanted to go to the University of Alaska to study forestry and wildlife, and I couldn't afford I got into the school, but I couldn't afford the money to get there. It was too far away. So this is the Spider Engineers. A raggedy country boy curious with thread, I imagine myself a captain in the Spider Engineers, weaving tricky webs to dandelion trees, then keeping itchy watch on scabby knees. Time ties clever knots across its starry web. Each child's a shooting star, trailing sylvan thread. Born of wisdom's salty tears, everyone's a captain in the Spider Engineers. So most of my influences are really from wilderness, to tell you the truth. I have a very conscious and a joyous relationship with wildlife and animals. I used to sit and watch them, and I don't know, I think I always wanted to be whatever animal I was watching, and so I ended up being the animal I am, you know. So this is called Comic Strays. I was never a bear, but a bear taught me to run. I was never a blue heron, but a heron taught me to contemplate water. I was never a deer, but deer taught me grace. I was never an otter, but otters taught me wild freedom plays in a river. I was never a coyote, but coyotes remind us to glance over our shoulders. I was never a raven, but a raven tells me to make up my mind. I was never a fox, but a clever fox tells me to seize the day. I was never a swan, but swans' wings carry dreams over the fields. I was never a dolphin, bow-coursing dolphins guide my voyage across the sea. I was never a whale's eye, its surfacing and sounding carry my soul. I was never a fish, but a trout's leap teaches life as a rainbow splash. I was never the moon, but moonlight urges poets to cross the dark. I am a son of the sun's rising, each beginning and end of days. I was never a hawk. A hawk stoops, mercy is the swiftest wings. I was never more captive by a mortal eye, seduced by beauty of living things. And I was in the last period of time, and so I wrote this ode to Ken Wainio, because although I didn't really understand his poetry, I realized after a while that wasn't the point. You know, it wasn't to be understood. In understanding, the ego gets the way of that. You think you're supposed to understand because in a way you get to own something or figure you could use it, you know, instead of just being with it. And so he opened my voice a little bit to the playfulness of language. So this is a note to Ken Wainio. Now the evangelists can plant their cabbages in hell, and Julius Caesar's stolen violin can be distributed as narcotic hamburgers, financing another president's twisted grin, as he claims fascists didn't wiretap Lorca for producing Andalusian fish from thin air, backed by a Spanish guitar and one black olive. Just to show God how the poor stagger on stage. Now the pyramid builders cap their burning sandals, can burn their sandals in praise of ibis footprints on the moon, and every poet chasing rent in San Francisco to find a key to its hilly inner kingdom will miss the tall-eyed ghost on a taxicab street, whose unreality never lost a drinking match over absurdity's gourmet necrophile grail title to all the hit whale songs Rambo never wrote. Now the wild birds can gather flute breath, and critics go home and eat their wigs, because winter's razor blade headstones slice epitaphs into honeyed extinct silence. Inside and outside that smoky room where stars make infinity's serpents, and tattooed Zeus makes wine out of grief. Now there's ash in America's blue living room, where news never poses for ambulances, and parchment bandages peeled off the dead are delivered too late for flamenco telegrams. Now California's surreal orphan scarf dancing poet down deaf ecological freeways has finished the scarecrow's tune he didn't hear yesterday, and it's lights out in the spaghetti factory myth out here in the earthquake cemetery he loved.